Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and you're ready to see one of possibly the games of the year with an absolute monster performance from our hero today, who is LIVESTREAMS, who is going to play very nice in their 114 SP2. So this is quite an unusual tier 10 tank destroyer inside the game. Originally it was a reward, I believe, for getting, was it gold on average in 3 seasons of ranked many years ago. Now you can be able to get your 114 SP2 for, I believe, reaching gold inside Onslaught, which is not the easiest thing to do, but arguably a little faster than having to blooming complete ranked and get gold rated in ranked in each of the seasons. So the 114 SP2, this is a tier 10 Chinese tank destroyer that is turreted, and it has monster damage per minute and really good flexibility to go with that. On top of that, the 114 SP2 has at least a reasonable amount of armor. It's not incredible, don't get me wrong. It's got like 75mm on the hull, at the front and at the side, and on the turret, 135 and 75 on the side of the turret. So it's not great. You're easily going to be able to go through it with most guns. But still, this is not like an FE4005 where you can just whiff HE shells at it and hope that and pretty much be guaranteed that they go in. It's got enough armor to be able to take a hit and occasionally pull off a miracle bounce, keep yourself in the game, or even just mitigate some of the damage that those filthy artillery on the enemy team might be doing to you. So I'm really interested to see how the 114 is going to perform in this position, because I've always thought, you know, where do you take your turreted tank destroyers on a map like this when you want to be a little bit more offensive? You know, a lot of people will be thinking, well, I would just sit at the back and wait for them to push. But this position here, especially if the enemy team win the hill, it's very hard to use unless you play against silly sausages, right? However, being forward in a position like this, in a 114 SP2 that has decent base view range, which you'll be able to improve with good crew skills, and I believe also a field mod as well. And suddenly, you know, not only are you spotting 1009 on the WT Alpha E100, you're also managing to get big old chunky shots into them. Now, the alpha damage on this tank is not quite as good as other tier 10 tank destroyers. You know, 650 might as well be on a heavy tank these days, right, in 2024. But it's not bad. It's not bad. And considering how the Hori 3 is performing with its 700 alpha, having 600 here, oh, it works. And the gun caliber on this vehicle at 152 is also lovely as well, meaning that you can overmatch most of the plates on an STRV 103B. So the APCR rounds, very useful against those thinly armored tanks which are angled at extreme amounts. So for example, you could go through a 60 TP turret on the top with this vehicle with just either the AP or the APCR. I guess the real downside to this tank, there's no downside to how LIVESTREAMS playing here, as they managed to vanquish the WT Alpha 100, and they're going to start to blind fire a lot here. I guess the real downside to this tank is the lack of what I would call like extreme pen, right? 329 APCR, it pales in comparison to, for example, the Hori 3. Whereas it will do as good as tanks like the Gorilla, which is kind of like a bit of a sniping vehicle as well. But compared to, you know, a Jagdpanzer 100 with 420 heat, a 268, which is using 395 heat, even compared to its non-turreted Chinese brother, the 113 GFT, that's got 395 heat as well. So this thing can struggle against very heavily armored tier 10 tanks. But what do you notice about the enemy team in this matchup? Not very many heavily armored vehicles, a lot of glass cannons that can be overmatched by LIVESTREAMS in their 114 SP2. So I must mention LIVESTREAMS' build on this vehicle. They have gone not for full accuracy, you know, the vents aren't in there as well to be able to give them an extra 4% accuracy if they can use bond vents, because it looks like they really like this vehicle. But they're using a similar build to in the video that I made last week with the Gorilla, where they're using a snapshot directive along with probably having snapshot on their gunner as well. Be very surprised if they didn't. And this gives this vehicle minus kind of like 15% dispersion when turning the turret. So that kind of replaces a rotation device purely for using 9 to 10,000 credits per game, depending on how if you buy them in bulk or not. So now Luxie is just really starting to ramp up the damage from this position. And the camo rating on this vehicle, it's not great, and you can't improve it like you can on other tank destroyers, like a Hori 3, for example, but it's not bad. 8% while moving, it's better than a Concept 5, let's say it like that. But when you're sitting still, 13, nearly 14 base camo. Yeah, when you're sitting still and just waiting, this thing is very sneaky indeed. It does have a bit of an issue, though, with its field mods, that, as I said, it doesn't get that plus 5% on the Hori or the 268, which allows them to have really, really good camo for how big they are when moving. So you still got to be a little bit careful here with the 114. So Luxie has gone for not quite full accuracy, but they've gone for accuracy and damage per minute on this vehicle. And you're going to see just how well this vehicle does with that. I'll be very interested, Luxie, if I have the pleasure of watching, having you watch my video on your amazing game here. I would love to know the penultimate field mod on this vehicle. What did you choose? Did you choose to take the rate of fire, or did you choose to take the accuracy on this vehicle? The toss-up is, do you want to have 5% accuracy, or do you want to have 3% damage per minute on a tank like this? And it's a real hard decision to make. You know, DPM is DPM. You could think of it as, if you go from one extreme to the other, do you want to have 10% accuracy, or do you want to have 6% rate of fire? 6% rate of fire is kind of like a tank class in that way, changing the reload significantly indeed. But to have 10% better accuracy, whoa, that would be lovely. However, you know, maybe Luxie is compensating by taking the damage per minute and then taking the aiming device to kind of mitigate those weaknesses to go for kind of like a full damage per minute build on this vehicle. Although you could argue that if you wanted to have an extra 4% damage per minute and 4% accuracy at the same time, then it becomes a little bit more tricky, because the vents would be able to do that for you on this tank. Alright, so Luxie now is just an Overwatch. We don't know how many blind shots they've hit this game, but they're up to 4,400 damage right now, 4,500 damage I should say, and they're trying to do TD15 Triumph. This is one of the hardest missions to do in the game, but with a shot like that, that puts Luxie a little bit closer to being able to get it. You have to do 8,000 damage and destroy 6 vehicles on the enemy team, as well as win to take down literally the hardest mission to do in any tank destroyer. And you could argue it's probably the hardest mission to do of any of the vehicles, at least since Wargaming nerfed the incinerator mission all of those years ago. Who is an old school World of Tanks vet? Sign off in the comments down below if you remember trying to do incinerator mission for the medium tanks. Oh, nice shot there back into the Tessac. Terminator model T1000 Tessac on the enemy team. Good stuff there. Man, that old incinerator mission, that drove me balmy. Literally, you can probably still find the reaction in one of my best moments videos on this channel, where I scream with enjoyment of managing to finally set the second tank on fire in a single game that was higher tier than you. Even that mission, in its unnerfed form, probably not as hard as to do TD15 Triumph, because TD15 Triumph requires you to have an epic game, whereas Incinerator requires you to, I guess, just get lucky a couple of times, right? But it definitely helped me, that mission, with learning how to set vehicles on fire with regards to fuel tank mechanics and things like Deadeye on your gunner and all of those aspects. So Luxie is just imagining where a whole wealth of tank destroyers could be on the enemy team. There's still 6. Yeah, 6 tank destroyers left on the enemy team for the 15 players. And unfortunately, this is what happens when you invest all of your eggs in the little basket above the cap circle of this kind of sniper's nest, and then you just don't have the crossfire. But oh my goodness, all the accuracy in the world couldn't help Luxie there be able to go through the side of the Foch 155. And suddenly this game is starting to look like a formality, an absolute formality here. But luckily, the Foch 155 turns their tank to the side. Can't imagine that Luxie could possibly still be in that position. Trying to proxy spot the WT Alpha 100, I guess, in this scenario. And will Luxie be able to pull off their third kill of the game? Yes, they will. Another blind shot there. So we won't know whether Luxie has actually managed to do 8,000 damage already. But it's kind of irrelevant unless they're trying, because if they're trying to do this mission with honors, they're going to need a little bit more. Oh, that was, I have to admit, that went exactly where you aimed it, Luxie. That was poor marksmanship. But at the time, it did look like the Super Conqueror was going to start to lurch backwards. Okay, so now Luxie is in just a horrendous situation here. They are against how many vehicles? Is that 8 vehicles on the enemy team with only a self-propelled gun on their team? To all intents and purposes, this is pretty much like a 1 versus 8 right now, unless that T92 can prove to be useful. And oh dear, here comes the artillery. Medkit used. Luckily, Luxie has a premium medkit on this tank, so they're going to have a reduced cooldown on that for later on in this battle. And will this be the first of the 2 versus 8? Yes, it will. As the Gorilla gets shut down. Now Luxie has to try and stop that Super Conqueror from closing the distance, because as soon as he gets proxy spotted, then the tank destroyers are going to be able to mince him. He pulls back behind the bush to not get spotted when he shoots through the bush, and his Sixth Sense doesn't go off, keeping himself hidden. And there we go, with the artillery falling, now Luxie truly is in a 1 versus 6 scenario. In contention for a Kolobanov's medal with 3,400 hit points left on the enemy team. Luxie has 5 kills to their name, and if they get 1 more, they'll probably do TD15 Triumph without honors, including all of the blind shells they've hit this game. But do you think a quality player like Luxie69 is just going to settle for a nice game of World of Tanks? I think not. I think Luxie is going to try and take this one down. 6 kills now, 5 vehicles left on the enemy team, with Luxie finishing off the Gorilla 15. And luckily, it looks like the 268 version 4, who's on 5 kills, is going to have a battle of the top guns as they decap with 900 hit points. Okay, Luxie, here we go. Take your battle of the top guns. But unfortunately, it's not really too fair to have a battle when there's kind of like archers flinging in against this melee engagement. Luxie connects a clean shot to the weak point there of the 268 version 4, but the 268 version 4 puts a heat round through them. And this artillery with their damaging shells from a funky angle just keeps bombarding Luxie again and again. And oh no. Luxie, what was that? That was hoping. I think you were under pressure in that scenario. That weak point was not visible, and oh no, 357. Doesn't look like it was to be, boys and girls. What? Okay, apparently Luxie got unlucky the first ridge line hacks there and manages to, what looked like, almost go through the ridge line there to hit that weak point on the 268 version 4. But maybe with the 50 ping that Luxie has, their replay maybe desynced a little bit there. Nevertheless, the result is what happened, and that is that Luxie finishes off the battle of the top guns. The 268 version 4 is denied from glory, and here comes the WTRP 100 and a mercy roll there. No HE was fired. 654 damage dealt, a slight high roll, unless Luxie is taking shell tuning on this replay, and then it would be pretty much an average roll for this vehicle. And they just have 1 APCR round left to their name, and now 24 hit points, with artillery truly being a punishing beast from the side. Okay, so Luxie has just showed that this position is great, at least if there's loads of tank destroyers on the enemy team that slowly waltz at you one by one, and managing to finish them off. And oh my word, that Batchat shell missing Luxie's tank by about 50 centimeters there. So, or about a yard, I guess, in American. Roughly, yeah, half a yard, something like that. Okay, Luxie now feels the artillery might be reloading, unless both of the self-propelled guns there. They have 2 minutes left to find 3 vehicles on the enemy team. We have seen 9,000 damage. We know it's got to be more than that. And Luxie now connects to the Batchat 15558 with another artillery behind them. That's their last APCR shell, but so they only have high explosive rounds left. But luckily, this tank has not too bad high explosive penetration at 90 millimeters, so they might be able to go through the side here. They do. Clean shot. Both artillery out the game. Maradona couldn't use the hand of God to be able to defy this result, I say. And Luxie69 now with 10 kills to their name now has a gorilla left to vanquish to secure possibly one of, if not the most epic games of World of Tanks I have ever seen at tier 10. Can you believe it? This vehicle, the unarmored, no damage blocked 114 SP2, now just 1 shot away from winning a Kolobanov's against 1 versus 6. But really, it was a 2 versus 8 with an artillery that just managed to play as a distraction. The siren goes off. 1 minute left. Luxie has to connect a clean shot to the gorilla's turret now. The hull probably won't be enough with the 90 millimeters of pen that they have. But luckily, it's 2 turreted tanks going against each other. And there you go. The shot to the hull, not enough. Fails to pen. If they still had one of those APCR rounds, they probably would have been able to win the game there and then. But now, with 55 hit points on the gorilla and 24 on Luxie, they are not going to play for a draw. They are going to go get stuck in. And Luxie's going to swing to the right to make sure they stay 50 meters away from the rock, so the gorilla isn't going to get the proxy spotting, and that means they get the kill. What a beautiful shot at the end of the game. Beautiful play there to use the proxy spotting circle to stay 50 meters away from the rock to make sure that Griller didn't know what was coming. And luckily, the Griller lost the 50-50. And Luxy, as the aggressor, gives themselves the advantage in that scenario. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what a monster game of World of Tanks. 10,700 damage seen, 2,000 spotting damage, 11 frags at tier 10. What more could you want from a game of World of Tanks? Well, how about nearly a couple of thousand damage fired blind? 12,979 damage dealt to add to those 11 kills. This was 1,815 base experience, a staggering result. And the only thing that sucked about this replay is that Luxy took only gold rounds on this tank, meaning they spent 70,000 on consumables, 170,000 on ammunition, still managed to somehow only lose 38,000 credits. Probably because of this gargantuan effort. The Pools medal for those 11 frags, the Pascucci's for finishing off those pesky self-propelled guns, the one that everybody wants, the Kolobanov's medal for standing alone against at least 5, this time 6, and the mother of all high calibers for that, just shy of 13,000 damage. So Luxy, congratulations to you on this redonkulous game of World of Tanks. You showed fabulous play under pressure and showed why a flexible tank destroyer like the 114 SP2, which kind of sacrifices that armor to be able to get that big gun, can be tons of fun. And thank you so much for uploading your replay on the What Record website for the community to enjoy. When I saw this game, I knew I wanted to feature it on YouTube today. And look, see if I have the pleasure of you watching my hopefully humble review of your amazing performance. Please let me know, with the penultimate field mod, do you choose to go for the accuracy or do you choose to go for the rate of fire? And I hope all of you enjoyed this video today. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video as it goes live on Monday, there are brand new Twitch tokens arriving. So swing by on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby, get some loot, enjoy some games, and come see if the matchmaker's treating me well today. So really looking forward to seeing you all live right now. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.